Diana Callaway brought her palm down on the mahogany table so hard that 43 coffee cups trembled. "Get out! You're fired, do you hear me?" Fired. Every face in the boardroom turned toward the quiet black man standing near the door. He wore a faded blue flannel shirt, work boots, and in one weathered hand he carried a little green dinosaur backpack. The man didn't flinch, he didn't defend himself, he didn't tell Diana that she had just fired the founder of the company. He simply looked at her, calm, steady, almost sad, and said, "I want you to remember how you did this." Then he walked out. What Diana didn't know was that Ethan Cole owned 38% of the company, controlled the building she was standing in, and chaired the board that could end her career. And in exactly 47 minutes, a sealed audit was going to reveal something even worse. At 8:47 that rainy Friday morning, Ethan stood in the marble lobby of Callaway Brennan Holdings, with water darkening the shoulders of his flannel shirt. He shifted the green backpack from one hand to the other. Its cartoon dinosaur had big crooked eyes, 3 felt teeth, and 1 scuffed nostril. It looked absurdly cheerful beneath the 40-foot glass ceiling. The young receptionist cleared her throat. "Sir?" Ethan looked up. "Do you have an appointment?" Her nameplate read Leona Price. She was young, maybe 28, with careful braids and a framed photograph beside her monitor. In the picture, a little girl with 2 missing front teeth held a school certificate against her chest. "I'm here for the 9 o'clock, Ethan said. Leona checked her screen. "The quarterly strategy meeting." "That's right." Her fingers stopped over the keyboard. "That meeting is on the 44th floor. Senior management only." "I know." She looked at the flannel shirt, then the work boots, then the dinosaur backpack. "I'll need to see your executive badge." Before Ethan could reach into his pocket, a sharp voice came from behind him. "Leona, let him through. He's probably one of the consultants." A thin man in a charcoal suit was striding toward the elevators while reading something on his phone. Ethan recognized him immediately. Gregory Vance, Chief Operating Officer, $4,000 suits, private club memberships. A smile in every corporate photograph that never quite reached his eyes. Leona straightened. "Mr. Vance, I still need to. I said let him through. I don't have time for this." Gregory never looked at Ethan. He pressed the elevator button. The doors opened. He stepped inside and kept staring at his phone. The doors began to close. Ethan stopped them with his boot. "Going up?" he asked. Gregory finally raised his eyes. His expression tightened, as if Ethan's presence had created an inconvenience he hadn't budgeted for, apparently. They rode in silence, 12, 20, 30. Ethan glanced down at the backpack. For a moment his face softened. Maya had insisted he carry it. She had climbed into his lap while he tied his boots that morning, zipped 1 orange goldfish cracker into the front pocket, and whispered, "Emergency snack." "For what emergency?" Ethan had asked. "In case you get sad at work." He had laughed then, or tried to. Maya had studied him with the serious brown eyes she had inherited from her mother. "Daddy, are you happy?" "Yes, baby girl." It had come out too quickly. Maya seemed to know it was a lie, but she let him have it. "Come home by 6, I promise." The elevator chimed, 44. Gregory stepped out without holding the door. Ethan followed. The executive floor was all polished stone, frosted glass, and controlled urgency. Employees moved quickly with tablets pressed to their chests. Assistants whispered into headsets. Men and women in tailored clothes walked as if every second had already been invoiced. A woman in a silk blouse glanced at Ethan. Her eyes dropped to the backpack. Then she looked away. 2 men beside the water cooler stopped talking as he passed. Ethan knew that silence. It was the silence of being noticed without being seen. He had known it in hotel lobbies, in first-class cabins, at charity dinners where people asked which athlete he was, at investor meetings where someone tried to hand him an empty glass. He had learned long ago that invisibility was not the absence of attention. Sometimes it was attention without curiosity. The boardroom stood at the end of the hall, its frosted door propped open. Inside, 43 senior employees gathered around a table long enough to seat 50. Coffee steamed from silver pots, screens glowed. A financial model waited on the wall. And cutting through every other sound was Diana Callaway's voice. Precise, controlled, impatient. Ethan had seen Diana in person only twice. Once at a shareholder dinner 11 months earlier, when she had passed within 3 feet of him and never looked up. And once on the cover of a business magazine beneath the words, "The Iron Woman Rebuilding American Business." He had bought the issue at an airport. He had read every page. Then he had folded it into his bag and never mentioned it again. Ethan entered the room. The change was immediate. Not silence, not yet, just a ripple. One conversation stopped, then another. Heads turned one by one. Diana stood at the head of the table, a gold pen between her fingers. She stopped in the middle of a sentence. Her eyes moved over Ethan, flannel shirt, work boots, unshaven jaw, dinosaur backpack. Her lips curved into something too small to be called a smile. "Excuse me," she said. The room quieted. "I believe you're in the wrong meeting." Ethan walked to an empty chair near the far end of the table. He set the backpack beside it carefully. "I don't believe I am." Someone coughed. Diana placed a pen on the table. And you are Ethan Cole. Cole? She snapped her fingers toward a young man seated to her right. Bradley, attendance list? Bradley rushed to unlock his tablet. Diana kept watching Ethan. He could feel her assembling a story about him from the clothes he wore. A careless employee. An uninvited contractor. A man who had wandered too far upstairs. Ethan met her gaze. He didn't smile, he didn't look down, he simply waited. Bradley swallowed. Miss Callaway, there's no Ethan Cole on the executive attendance list. Diana raised an eyebrow. Bradley scrolled again. There is an E. Cole in the employee system. Classification says advisory. No assigned department. Advisory, Diana repeated. Advisory to whom? It doesn't specify. A few people shifted in their chairs. Diana leaned forward. Mr. Cole, I don't know who let you onto this floor, but this is a closed executive session. Punctuality matters, preparation matters, professional standards matter. Her eyes dropped deliberately to the backpack, and I do not conduct billion-dollar strategy meetings around children's luggage. A few nervous laughs escaped around the table. They died quickly. Ethan folded his hands. I apologize for arriving after the others, he said. My daughter had a difficult morning. Diana blinked once. I'm sorry to hear that. But this company employs 3,000 people. I cannot rearrange executive operations around everyone's personal life. She's 6. Mr. Cole, her name is Maya. Diana's jaw tightened. This is not a therapy session. I don't need your daughter's name. I need this quarter's projections. Ethan looked at her, not angrily. That seemed to bother her more. Diana picked up the gold pen again. I have been CEO for 4 years. In that time, revenue has increased 42%. Our share value has risen 60%. We are weeks away from completing an $80 million acquisition. She glanced around the table, making sure the room was still hers. I did not accomplish that by tolerating distractions. She turned back to Ethan. So let me be perfectly clear. I don't know what string you pulled to get into this room, but you are no longer welcome in it. Then she looked at Bradley. Open his file. Bradley's thumb hovered over the screen. It's open. Terminate him. Effective immediately. Legal minimum severance. Security can escort him out. Bradley stared at her. Mrs. Callaway, I don't think I have authorization to. Her voice hardened. I am the authorization. She looked slowly around the table. Does anyone wish to challenge that? No one spoke. Gregory Vance lifted his coffee and took a slow drink. A small, satisfied smile touched the corner of his mouth. Ethan saw fear around the table. He saw people studying their notes with desperate intensity, and he saw a few who were angry but had been trained to hide it. 3 seats down, a middle-aged black woman in a grey blazer held her pen so tightly that her knuckles had gone pale. Patricia Owens, Vice President of Operations, 26 years with the company, passed over 4 times. Ethan had read her file 2 nights earlier. Patricia gave him the smallest apologetic nod. Ethan reached down and picked up the backpack. He stood. Then he looked from face to face. Before I leave, he said, I want you to remember this moment. Diana gave a short laugh. Spare us the speech, not because of me. His voice remained quiet, because of how you did it. Something flickered in Patricia's eyes. Diana pointed toward the door with her gold pen. You are not the first failed employee to call me cruel, Mr. Cole. You won't be the last. Ethan lifted the backpack by its strap. The door is behind you, Diana said. I know. He walked out. The frosted doors swung shut behind him. The hallway felt longer on the way back. Every employee he passed suddenly found something urgent on a screen. Ethan walked to the elevator and pressed the button. Then he took out his phone. It was 3 years old, with a crack near the corner from the day Maya had dropped it in the zoo parking lot. He found a contact, Marcus Ree. Marcus answered on the first ring. Ethan, you were right. Marcus went quiet. You weren't supposed to come in today. We agreed you would stay and rally until the board review. Plans changed. What happened? Diana fired me. Silence, not surprise, something heavier. She did what? In front of the entire senior team. How long ago? About 90 seconds. Ethan, please tell me you did not let her process the termination. I let her, Marcus exhaled. You let the CEO fire the chairman of the board. I needed to see it for myself. We already had enough evidence for a formal review. I needed witnesses. You had an 18-month audit. I needed Bradley to open my file. I needed her to say the words. I needed the room to see what happens when she thinks someone has no power. Marcus was silent again. When he spoke, the warmth had left his voice. Is that all she said? No, what else? She said she didn't care about my mourning. Marcus knew exactly what that meant. He had met Maya. He had held Ethan's hand at Camille's funeral. He had watched his oldest friend become a father and a widower in the space of 2 impossible years. Where are you now? Marcus asked. Outside the boardroom. Leave the building, no. Ethan, is the package ready? The package has been ready for 3 months. Bring it. Think carefully. Once I walk into that room, the acquisition stops. The board vote changes. Diana's lawyers get involved. Gregory panics. The press may find out. Bring it to the boardroom. How long? 10 minutes. Marcus gave a humorless laugh. You always did know how to turn a match into a wildfire. 10 minutes, Marcus. I'm coming. Ethan ended the call. The elevator arrived. He did not get in. Instead, he walked back down the hall and stopped across from the boardroom doors. He placed the backpack between his boots. Then he leaned against the wall and waited. Inside, Diana had already moved on. "Now that the interruption has been handled," she said, smoothing the agenda in front of her, "let's discuss the Hicks contract." "Gregory?" Gregory stood with his presentation remote. "As you can see on slide 12, Patricia raised her hand. Diana did not look at her. "What is it?" "I would like the record to reflect that I object to how that was handled." The air tightened. Diana slowly lifted her head. "Excuse me, Mr. Cole's termination." "Patricia, this meeting is already behind schedule. We didn't know who he was. He was disruptive. He was quiet, unprepared. We never asked why he was here." "He was nobody, Patricia." The words landed harder than she intended. Patricia stared at her. Then she set her pen down. "With respect, that is exactly what concerns me." Diana's voice dropped. "Are you questioning my authority? I'm questioning the process. There was no process required. For termination? For removing a distraction." Patricia's shoulders tightened. She looked around the table. No one joined her. Not one voice. Diana turned back. Slide 12. Gregory clicked the remote. He had barely begun speaking when the boardroom doors slammed open. The frosted glass rattled in its frame. Marcus re-entered carrying a leather portfolio and a thick manila envelope. He was 41, Harvard-educated, and usually the calmest executive in the building. He was not calm now. "Stop the meeting." Gregory froze. Diana stared at him. "Marcus, what on earth are you doing?" "I said stop the meeting." He walked past his usual chair, past Diana, all the way to the front of the room. Then he placed the envelope on the table. "Where is Ethan Cole?" Diana leaned back. "You missed the excitement. I fired him." Marcus looked at her. "You fired?" "Yes." "You processed it?" "Bradley did." Bradley's face had gone white. Marcus turned toward him. "Did you open the personnel file?" Bradley nodded. "I started the termination request. Ms. Callaway ordered me to." Marcus closed his eyes. For 1 second he looked almost physically tired. Then he laughed. It was not loud. It was the stunned laugh of a man watching someone step onto a bridge after being warned there was no bridge. Diana's expression sharpened. "Explain yourself." Marcus looked around the room. "Does anyone here know who Ethan Cole is?" No one answered. "Anyone?" Patricia's lips parted. "I've seen the name on old corporate filings." Marcus nodded. "Yes, you have." He placed both hands on the table. 21 years ago, this company was called Cole Holdings. It began in a garage in Durham, North Carolina, with $400, 1 used laptop, and 2 employees. His eyes moved to Gregory. "I was employee number 2. Gregory lowered his coffee. Marcus continued. "Ethan Cole was employee number 1. The silence changed. Diana did not move. Cole Holdings merged with Callaway Brennan in 2019. Today, the combined company is worth approximately $1.2 billion. He touched the envelope. "Ethan owns 38% of the voting shares." Someone inhaled sharply. Marcus looked directly at Diana. "He is also chairman of the board." Diana's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Marcus gave her no escape. "Technically, Diana, you just fired your boss." A coffee spoon slipped from someone's hand and struck a saucer. Diana sat down slowly. "That's impossible." "It is not. The chairman is listed as E. Cole. Yes, I was told he was a silent partner." "You were told he did not involve himself in daily operations. I've never seen him." "That is also the problem." Diana looked around the room as if someone might correct this. No one did. Marcus opened the manila envelope. 18 months ago, Ethan began receiving employee complaints that did not match the reports reaching the board. He removed a thick-bound document. Unpaid overtime, retaliation, safety violations, buried harassment complaints, discriminatory promotion patterns, vendor irregularities. Gregory shifted in his chair. Marcus noticed. "So Ethan asked me to create an internal advisory role under his initial, no department, no executive privileges. He began entering this building as an ordinary employee." Diana's breathing slowed. "He sat in cafeterias," Marcus continued. "He rode elevators. He spoke to janitors, interns, warehouse workers, assistants, and security guards." Marcus glanced toward Gregory. "He has been in this building 11 times in 6 months. Gregory stared at the table. Not one senior executive introduced themselves. Diana's voice was thin. "Why today?" Today was supposed to be his final observation before the board review. Marcus paused. "I asked him not to come." "Why?" "Because he said he wanted to know whether you would treat a man in flannel differently from a man in a suit." Diana closed her eyes. Marcus dropped the report onto the table. It landed with a heavy thud. "And you answered him." Gregory pushed his chair back slightly. "What exactly is in that report?" Marcus turned. "I'm glad you asked." He opened the first section. Underpaid warehouse employees in Charlotte. Retaliatory dismissals in Raleigh. Safety complaints ignored in 3 facilities. Harassment reports buried by human resources. Then he looked directly at Gregory, and a series of vendor payments connected to the Whitman contract. Gregory's fingers tightened around his cup. "Those contracts were approved through proper channels." "Were your 4 trips to Cancun also approved through proper channels?" "No." Gregory's face drained. Marcus kept going. 2 trips to Aruba. A conference in February. Hotel rooms by a shell company sharing a tax identifier with Calver Industries. Gregory forced a laugh. Business development. With your wife's sister. Laugh died. Diana turned toward him. Gregory. Marcus looked back at her. He has been building this report for 18 months. You were not the only person under review. Diana's eyes moved to the doors. Where is Ethan? Marcus answered quietly. Right outside. The doors opened. Ethan stepped into the boardroom with the green dinosaur backpack in his hand. No one looked at his shirt now. No one looked at his boots. They looked at his face. He returned to the same chair Diana had ordered him out of less than 15 minutes earlier. He placed the backpack beside it, then he sat. Mrs. Callaway, he said, I'd like to have that meeting now. Diana's hands trembled in her lap. Mr. Cole, I think we should speak privately. No, I believe there has been a serious misunderstanding. There has. Relief flashed across her face too early. Ethan continued. You misunderstood who deserved basic respect. Her relief vanished. This conversation should not happen in front of the entire team. It will happen in front of the same people who watched you fire me. She touched the gold chain at her throat. This is deeply embarrassing. Yes, Diana blinked. I made a judgment call. Given what I know now, it was obviously the wrong one. Given what you know now, I'm trying to apologize. You're trying to apologize for firing the chairman. Ethan leaned forward. You are not apologizing for firing the man who walked in wearing flannel. Her mouth opened, then closed. Those are different apologies, he said. Gregory began to stand. I think I should leave you two to sit down. Gregory. He sat. Ethan looked around the room. I am not here for revenge. No one seemed to believe him yet. I am here because 3,000 people work for this company, and some of them are afraid to come to work. He looked at Diana. That is not what I built. Ethan, she said, softening her voice. I accept that I mishandled this morning. I'm under pressure. We are closing the quarter. Investors are calling. The Rick's acquisition could fail if I had worn a suit, would you have fired me? Diana stopped. If I had walked in and announced that I owned 38% of the company, would you have asked about my daughter? That isn't fair. It is the only fair question in this room. She gripped her necklace. If you had told me who you were, none of this would have happened. Ethan glanced toward Patricia. Did Patricia announce her title when she entered the lobby? No, Diana said. Did Bradley announce his salary? No answer. Did Gregory declare his net worth before the elevator doors opened? Gregory looked away. Ethan's voice remained level. The problem was not that I failed to tell you who I was. He let the words settle. The problem was that you only saw value after you learnt my title. Diana stared at him. Then Ethan reached for the backpack. He opened the small front pocket and removed one slightly crushed orange goldfish cracker. The sight of it seemed to confuse the room more than the audit had. My daughter packed this for me this morning, he said. His thumb brushed the cracker's broken tail. She said it was for emergencies. No one smiled. She thought her daddy might get sad at work. He placed it carefully on the mahogany table. The tiny orange cracker looked almost ridiculous beneath the recessed lights, and somehow no one could look away from it. Now, Ethan said, we can discuss what happens next. Diana drew a breath. Give me 30 days. No, I can fix this. You had 4 years. I gave this company everything. 80-hour weeks, missed family events, delayed medical appointments. Revenue rose 42% because of me. It's true. She looked startled. You did improve the numbers. Her chin lifted slightly. Then Ethan continued. And while those numbers rose, a woman in accounting cried in the cafeteria because she was afraid to ask for time off when her mother was diagnosed with cancer. Patricia's eyes filled. Warehouse staff in Charlotte worked hours they were never paid for. Ethan glanced at Gregory. Contracts went to vendors who paid for executive vacations. Then he looked back at Diana. You built something, but it is not what the magazine cover said it was. Diana's voice became a whisper. I can change. I'm not firing you today. Her head snapped up. For 1 second, naked relief crossed her face. Thank God. Ethan, I promise. I'm not firing you in 1 minute because that is how you lead. The relief froze. It is not how I lead. He folded his hands. There will be a board hearing next Thursday. You will receive the complete audit. You will answer every allegation on the record. You may retain counsel. Marcus will chair the proceedings. I will not participate in the vote. Diana stared at him. You are granting me due process. Yes. After what I did. Especially after what you did. Her eyes dropped. Effective immediately, you are on administrative leave. Then Ethan turned. Gregory Vance, you are suspended pending an independent forensic audit. Gregory's face tightened. You cannot possibly believe Marcus' interpretation of your badge. Gregory looked at him. Now, slowly, Gregory removed his access card and placed it on the table. Ethan turned to Patricia. She straightened. Yes, sir. You are interim chief operating officer. A strangled sound came from Gregory. Patricia looked behind herself as if Ethan must be speaking to someone else. Sir, I'm not sure I'm prepared. You have been here 26 years. That doesn't mean... You have been passed over 4 times, her lips parted. Twice your file said you were not executive material. Patricia's eyes flooded. I read your file Tuesday night, Ethan said. I disagree. She pressed one hand to her chest. Why me? 3 months ago, an accounting employee told you her mother had cancer. Patricia went still. You gave her your lunch, you sent her home. Then you transferred 3 of your own paid days to her because she was afraid she would lose wages. I didn't know anyone saw that. I was 2 tables away. Patricia covered her mouth. Ethan's voice softened. That is why you. A woman beside her placed a hand on Patricia's back. Diana watched all of it. Ethan saw the calculation return to her face. It was subtle, a slower breath, a steadier jaw. A leader who had realized authority would not save her and was searching for the next argument. May I ask one question, she said. Yes. How long have you been planning to humiliate me? Ethan was silent for a moment. I was planning a private board review in November. He gestured toward the room. This was not my plan. Don't pretend you didn't enjoy it. Ethan looked at the goldfish cracker. When he answered, the words were almost too quiet to hear. I didn't. Diana gave him a disbelieving look. I have a 6-year-old daughter who packed me an emergency snack because she was worried I might be sad. His eyes lifted. I would rather have spent this morning with her. That answer left Diana with nothing. Marcus gathered the audit documents. Mrs. Callaway, I will accompany you to your office. You may collect your personal belongings, then surrender your badge. I know the way. I will accompany you anyway. Diana stood. She smoothed the front of her skirt, picked up the gold pen, slipped it into her purse. Then she walked the length of the table. When she reached Ethan, she stopped. I won't apologize again, she said. You wouldn't believe me, you're right. Her eyes dropped to the backpack. I didn't know about your daughter. Ethan looked at her. That is the problem. Diana left. For several seconds, the room stayed perfectly still. Then 43 people seemed to breathe at once. Ethan picked up the cracker. He returned it to the backpack and zipped the pocket closed. Then he faced the room. I don't like speeches, he said. My father used to say that a man who talks too much usually hasn't done enough. A few nervous smiles appeared, so I'll keep this brief. He rested his palms on the table. 21 years ago, I started this company in my uncle's garage. I had $400, a used Dell laptop, and an idea. He looked at Marcus. For 6 years, it was mostly the 2 of us. We slept in the office, ate peanut butter sandwiches, missed birthdays. Marcus nodded once. When we hired our 7th employee, I promised myself I would never forget what it felt like to be the smallest person in a big room. Ethan looked down. This year, I broke that promise. The room shifted. No one had expected a confession. I got comfortable. I let other people run the company while I raised my daughter. I saw the numbers rise, so I assumed everything else was rising with them. He paused. Last December, an employee from the Charlotte warehouse mailed a handwritten letter to my house. The memory changed his face. Her name was Yolanda Briggs. She had worked unpaid overtime for 2 years. When she complained, she was told she was lucky to have a job. Patricia's hand tightened around her notebook. Her husband had been laid off. Her son needed insulin. Ethan swallowed. She wrote, Mr. Chairman, sir, please make them pay us what we earned. The room was silent. I read that letter 4 times. He looked from face to face. Then I flew to Charlotte and met Yolanda at a Waffle House off Interstate 85. We talked for 3 hours. His voice roughened. She described the company I had built. A long pause. I did not recognize it. Ethan looked toward Marcus. I also discovered Marcus had been warning me for a year. Marcus lowered his eyes. I had not listened. No one moved. Once I started digging, I found that Yolanda was not alone. He looked around the table. There were hundreds of Yolandas. He straightened. So I came in without the title, without the suit, without the people who usually walk ahead of me and tell a room how important I am. His gaze moved briefly toward the doors. I wanted to see how this company treated someone it believed was nobody. He let the silence answer. Some of you treated me with kindness. Some of you looked through me. I remember both. A few faces flushed. I am not naming anyone today. That is not the point. His voice became firm. From now on, we will not measure people by their clothes, their office, or the floor where they get off the elevator. We will measure them by how they treat someone who can do nothing for them. This silence was different. It was not fear, it was recognition. Patricia. She stood straighter. Yes, sir, first order of business. Bring Yolanda Briggs to this building Monday. Her husband and son come with her, first class. Patricia began writing. Every hour of overtime she is owed gets paid with interest by Wednesday. Yes, sir. Then audit every warehouse, regional office, cafeteria, and cleaning crew. If we owe money, we pay it. If someone was retaliated against, we make it right. Yes, sir. Second, my office is open all day Monday. Any employee who has been afraid to speak may come directly to me. Marcus cleared his throat. Ethan, legal will want a process. Create one that protects the employees, not the company. Marcus gave a reluctant nod. I'll handle it. Ethan picked up the dinosaur backpack. That's all. People remained seated. He looked around. Go home. Hug somebody. We start again Monday. Chairs moved slowly. Gregory headed toward the side door. Marcus's voice followed him. Gregory. Gregory stopped. Your badge. He removed it and placed it on the table without looking at anyone. Then he left. Bradley remained in his chair, clutching his tablet. Ethan walked over. Bradley. The young man looked up. Yes, sir, you did what you were told. I'm sorry. Next time ask whether it is right before you do it. Bradley nodded quickly. Yes, sir, that lesson will matter more than this morning. Bradley left. Soon only Ethan, Marcus and Patricia remained. Marcus sank into a chair. You let her fire you in front of 43 people. Yes, that was reckless. Yes, you could have identified yourself. Then she would have performed. Marcus looked toward Diana's empty chair. And everyone else. They would have performed too. A tired smile appeared on Marcus's face. You always were theatrical. My mother's fault. Patricia stood near the table, holding her notebook against her chest. Is there anything else you need before Monday? He saw the years in the way she held herself. Competence smaller so other people would not feel challenged by it. Patricia. Yes, sir. When you go home tonight, tell whoever is waiting for you. Husband, children, dog, houseplant. That a man in a flannel shirt said you are executive material. Her lower lip trembled. And you always were. Patricia nodded. I'm sorry it took us 26 years to see it. She tried to answer. No words came. Go home, Ethan said gently. We'll figure out the rest Monday. Reached the door, then turned. Thank you, Mr. Call. Ethan. She nodded. Thank you, Ethan. After she left, Marcus closed the leather portfolio. You know this is not over. I know. Diana will hire lawyers. I know. Gregory will protect himself. I know. The press may get this. Ethan looked at the backpack. I promised Maya I'd be home by 6. Marcus smiled for the first time that day. Then go home, boss. The elevator was empty. Ethan stood in the corner and watched the numbers descend. 44, 35, 20. He caught his reflection in the polished door. Same flannel shirt, same work boots. But the man looking back seemed older than the man who had entered that morning. When the elevator reached the lobby, Leona stood behind the reception desk. Mr. Cole? He stopped. Her eyes were wet. I'm sorry I didn't know. You did your job. I should have stopped Mr. Vance from overriding me. Ethan glanced at the framed photograph. Your daughter's name is Emma. Leona looked surprised. Yes, 7. Next time a man in an expensive suit tells you to ignore security procedure, you tell him no. Leona nodded. You tell him you have a daughter named Emma who's watching the kind of woman her mother chooses to be. Her eyes filled. Yes, sir. Good. He walked outside. The drizzle had returned. He did not open an umbrella. In the parking garage, he called his mother. She answered immediately. Ethan. Hey, Mama, you sound tired. I had a morning. What kind? The kind you warned me about. A pause. Then Evelyn Cole said somebody fired you. Ethan stopped beside his truck. How do you always know? Because I raised you. You have had the same wounded voice since Mrs. Henderson threw you out of the school play when you were 9. She didn't even let me audition. I remember, you sat on the porch for 2 hours. Ethan smiled despite himself. You told me the world was full of Mrs. Hendersons, and I told you to let them be what they are while you remain what you are. I remember. So who was Mrs. Henderson today, the CEO? Of which company? Mine. Evelyn laughed. A low, rich laugh. You were fired from your own company. Yes, ma'am. Did you fire her back? Not exactly. She gets due process. What does that mean? It means you were always too fair. Mama, where's Maya? With Miss Dolores. I'm picking her up. Tell that child I'm making sweet potato pie Sunday. I will. And Ethan, yes, ma'am, you did right. You don't even know what I did. I know. He closed his eyes. That is enough. Dolores Jennings had watched Maya 3 days a week since Camille died. She was 72, wore reading glasses on a chain, and possessed a stare capable of correcting grown men at 20 yards. When Ethan pulled up to her brick house, Maya was in the front yard wearing rain boots and jumping into a puddle with scientific concentration. Daddy! She ran across the lawn and collided with his knees. Ethan lifted her. Her muddy boots left 2 prints on his shirt. He held her tighter than usual. How was work? She asked. It was a day. Did you get sad? A little? Did the cracker help? He looked at her serious face. More than you know. Dolores stood on the porch with her arms crossed. Ethan Cole, you look like somebody hit you with a shovel. Close, the kettle is on. I should get Maya home. The kettle is already on. 45 minutes later, Ethan sat at her kitchen table while Maya drew what she called a horse lawyer on the living room floor. Dolores listened to the whole story without interrupting. When he finished, she sipped her tea. You know what a flannel shirt means to me? Ethan waited. My husband worked 31 years at Bethlehem Steel, came home every night in flannel. Her eyes drifted toward an old photograph on the wall. The funeral home put him in a suit. He never looked right in it. Ethan said nothing. A flannel shirt means somebody got up and went to work. Dolores set down her cup. That woman did not know what she was looking at. I humiliated her. No. Dolores leaned forward. She humiliated herself. You simply stayed long enough for everyone to see it. Ethan exhaled. Dolores studied him. That little girl in the other room does not need a chairman. He looked toward Maya. She needs her daddy. Yes, ma'am. Remember that before the 44th floor eats you alive. By 6 o'clock, exactly as promised, Ethan and Maya were home. He made macaroni and cheese from the blue box. They ate on the living room floor while watching a cartoon about otters. At 7:42, Maya fell asleep on his chest. He carried her upstairs, tucked her beneath the blanket and kissed her forehead. Then the calls began. Marcus, Patricia, unknown numbers, reporters, board members. Ethan let them ring until 9:03 when Harold Bennings's name appeared. Harold was 78, former Navy, and Ethan's mentor for 16 years. He never called after dark unless something was burning. Harold, son, the story is out. Ethan closed his eyes. How much? Flannel shirt, dinosaur backpack, goldfish cracker, chairman fired by his own CEO. Who leaked? 43 people watched it happen. The question is not who leaked. The question is who got there first. How bad? The Wall Street Journal runs online at midnight. CNBC has calls out. Diana retained Hartwell Graham. Ethan sat forward. The employment lawyer, the best one she could find. What is her position? She claims you concealed your identity to manufacture cause for removing her. I did not ask her to fire me. A courtroom story does not need to be true, it only needs to be simple. Harold's voice hardened. A jury hears secret billionaire disguises himself to entrap female CEO. They may not hear the audit. Ethan looked upstairs. What do you need from me? You back in the building Monday, every day until this is settled. His eyes stayed on Maya's closed door, or I'll be there. And the open door plan, still happening. Legal says that is a minefield. Then legal can wear boots, Harold sighed. You sound like your father. That good or bad, depends on whether you plan to sleep. Ethan did not sleep. At 4:30 in the morning, he stood in Maya's doorway and watched her curled around a stuffed elephant. I came home by 6, he whispered. The words were for him, not her. Saturday morning, the story was everywhere. By noon, the goldfish cracker had become a symbol. By afternoon, a reenactment had millions of views. One headline called it the Flannel and the Diamond. Ethan ignored all of it. He made pancakes with Maya. They bought strawberries at the farmer's market. She arranged them into a smiley face and explained that a bee had fallen in love with her. Daddy, I told him I'm 6. Did he listen? No. He kept buzzing. Some bees are stubborn. His phone vibrated on the counter. Maya looked at it. Your phone is sad. It's fine. It keeps crying. Ethan turned it off. Sunday, he took Maya to his mother's house in Durham. Evelyn Cole came onto the porch before the truck had stopped. Ethan Alexander Cole. Yes, ma'am. You were on television. Yes, ma'am. My pastor called. My hairdresser called. Your Aunt Ruth called. Aunt Ruth? You know she doesn't call anybody. Maya jumped from the truck. Grandma, I lost a tooth. Evelyn's entire face changed. Let me see that beautiful gap. Inside, the house smelled of sweet potato pie and lemon cleaner. After lunch, while Maya chased a butterfly in the yard, Evelyn led Ethan into the den and closed the door. Sit, he sat. She studied him for a long time. You did a big thing Friday. It wasn't supposed to be big. It never is with you. Ethan looked at his hands. I wanted to see who Diana really was. You wanted to see who all of them were. He did not answer. Evelyn softened. Your father would have been proud. Ethan's throat closed. I don't know. Do not tell me what I know about my husband. Her voice sharpened. Elias worked 43 years in that garage. Do you know what he hated? The customers who didn't pay. He hated being invisible. Ethan looked up. He used to come home and say, Evie, I don't mind the work. I mind that they look through me while I do it. Her eyes shone. Men drove expensive cars into his shop. They handed him keys without looking him in the eye. Then he fixed what they could not fix. Evelyn leaned closer. So when my son walks into a boardroom in the kind of shirt his father wore, and powerful people decide he is nobody, and then he turns the lights on, she placed her palm over Ethan's hand. Your daddy would have stood and clapped. Ethan could not speak. You hear me? Yes, ma'am. Louder. Yes, ma'am. Evelyn sat back. Good. Now are you firing that woman? There is a process. Are you firing her? I believe the board will remove her. Good. She nodded toward the window where Maya was laughing in the yard. When this is over, step back. Ethan frowned. Mama, you have been running since Camille died. I have been working. You have been hiding inside work. The word struck cleanly. You can clean the company. You can make things right. But after that, come home. She looked older suddenly. Not weak, just mortal. Your daughter needs more than promises about 6 o'clock. Ethan's eyes went back to Maya. Promise me, he took a breath. I promise. Monday morning, Ethan entered the building at 7:15 wearing a charcoal suit, white shirt, navy tie, and the same work boots. The dinosaur backpack hung from one shoulder. Maya had packed another cracker. Leona stood behind the desk. Good morning, Mr. Cole. Morning. How's Emma? Leona smiled. She had a good weekend. Call security. Any employee who wants to come to the 44th floor today comes up. No appointment required. Yes, sir. And when Yolanda Briggs arrives with her family, call me. I'll meet her here. As Ethan crossed the executive floor, people looked up. This time they made eye contact. A paralegal stood side to side desk. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Devon. Devon looked startled that Ethan knew his name. By 8:45, the line outside the chairman's office reached the break room. Patricia hurried toward Ethan. We have 114 employees signed in. He looked down the hall. Executives, warehouse workers, cafeteria staff, cleaning crews, a woman in a hijab holding a folder. An older black man leaning on a cane. Ethan drew a slow breath. Cancel my calendar. All of it, and bring chairs. He walked to the man with the cane. Sir, what's your name? Henry Walker, Raleigh facility. How long have you worked for us? 19 years. You came from Raleigh this morning? Yes, sir. Then you go first. Henry entered the chairman's office, holding his cap in one hand and his cane in the other. He sat across from Ethan. For a long time, he said nothing. Ethan waited. Finally, Henry cleared his throat. My boy used to work here. Ethan remained still. His name was Terence Walker. Henry stared at the floor. He worked beside me on the loading dock. 6'3", strong as an ox, never missed a day. What happened? In September of 2022, a pallet came loose, 1,200 pounds of industrial fasteners. Henry's grip tightened around his cane. It pinned him against a forklift. Ethan's hands went flat on the desk. He died 4 days later. He was 31. I'm sorry, please let me finish. If I stop, I won't start again. Ethan nodded. Henry placed a folder on the desk. The pallet had been flagged 3 times. Wrong gauge strapping. We emailed the supervisor. He emailed the regional manager. Henry tapped the folder. The manager said replacing it would cost too much. Ethan's jaw tightened. After Terence died, the company paid my daughter-in-law $160,000. She had 2 babies and no job. They made her sign a non-disclosure. What is her name? Channel, and they fired me. Ethan stared at him. Reason, emotional liability. Said my grief hurt morale. The office seemed to shrink. Why are you still listed as an employee? They rehired me 6 months later. New title. 22% pay cut. Called it a fresh start. Henry laughed once bitterly. I needed the insurance. My wife has diabetes. He looked directly at Ethan. The strapping is still wrong. Ethan closed his eyes. For 5 seconds there was only the hum of the ventilation system and the murmur of waiting employees outside. Then he looked at Henry. I am sorry about Terence. Henry nodded. I am sorry you spent 3 years working for the company that killed your son. Henry's eyes filled. And before this week ends, every unsafe strap in every facility will be replaced. Sir, I don't care what it costs. Ethan pulled the folder toward himself. The manager who ignored those warnings will sit in this office Wednesday and explain why Terence died. Henry's cap trembled in his hand, and Chanel's non-disclosure is void as of today. There will be a new settlement. It will not include silence. I didn't come for money, I know. I came because you said the door was open. Henry's voice broke. I needed somebody in a room like this to know my son's name. Ethan stood and walked around the desk. He sat beside Henry. Terence Walker. Henry covered his face with his cap. His shoulders shook. Ethan stayed beside him. After a long time, Henry lowered the cap. You are the first man wearing a tie in this company who has said my boy's name to me. That changes today. Henry rose with his cane. Then he placed one hand behind Ethan's neck and pulled their foreheads together. You listen to me. Yes, sir. You are doing a holy thing. Ethan swallowed. Don't get tired. No, sir. Don't back down. No, sir. Henry patted his cheek once. My son thanks you. When Henry left, Ethan stood alone for a moment. Then he pressed the intercom. Patricia. Yes? Send in the next person. They came for 6 hours. A forklift driver from Atlanta whose workplace injury had been denied 3 times. A cafeteria worker named Althea who had been underpaid 8 cents an hour for 11 years because of a rounding error that only rounded down. Priya from accounting who had been told she was too Indian for client-facing work. A janitor named Walter who had found Gregory Vance in an executive restroom with white lines on the marble counter. Every employee entered carrying something invisible. Most left standing straighter. At 12:30, Patricia appeared with a sandwich. You need to eat. Send in the next person. Miss Althea made this herself and said she would come up here if you refused. Ethan looked at the sandwich. Then he laughed. It was the first real laugh he had managed since Friday. Give me the sandwich. At 1:45, Leona called. Mr. Cole, Yolanda Briggs is here. Ethan was out of his chair before she finished. In the lobby stood a woman in a carefully pressed navy dress, a tall, thin man, and a 14-year-old boy in khakis. Yolanda recognized Ethan. Her hands flew to her mouth. Mr. Cole, Yolanda. Her eyes filled. This is my husband, Darius. My son, Jerome. Ethan shook both their hands. Then he looked at Yolanda. I owe you an apology. You don't need to. I do. People were moving through the lobby. Employees, security guards, delivery workers. Ethan did not lower his voice. My company stole wages from you. Yolanda's face crumpled. You wrote to my house because every system beneath me had failed. Mr. Cole, I should have known before the letter. I should have been watching. A small crowd began to form. Ethan held her gaze. I'm sorry. Yolanda started to cry. Not quietly, not politely. It was the kind of crying that came from years of being forced to act as if something did not hurt. Darius put a hand on her back. I'm saying this here, Ethan continued, because leadership is not only public when it wants credit. His voice carried through the lobby. It must also be public when it is wrong. Upstairs, Marcus had prepared the documents. Yolanda's unpaid wages, plus interest, totaled $47,328. Ethan placed the check in her hand. She stared at the number. My boy's insulin, she whispered. That money is wages you already earned. She looked up. But beginning next month, every employee's insulin and critical medication will be covered in full. No deductible, no prior authorization games. Darius made a small sound. Yolanda sank into the chair. You're the reason, Ethan said. The whole company will hear the announcement Friday. You hear it first. After a moment, Yolanda called Jerome to her side. Look at me, baby, he did. This man walked into his own company looking like somebody they thought was nobody. Her voice shook and he made them see us. Jerome's eyes shone. When you grow up and have power, and you will have power, you remember this. She squeezed his hand. Real power is seeing the people everybody else walks past. Jerome looked at Ethan. Thank you, Mr. Cole. You're welcome. Ethan smiled faintly. And listen to your mother. She knows what she's talking about. He took the family to lunch. For 90 minutes they talked about Charlotte, Jerome's grades, and Darius's years as an amateur boxer. Yolanda laughed once, then covered her mouth as if the sound had surprised her. Ethan returned to the office at 3:15. He kept the door open until 7:45. The last employee was Charis from Information Technology. For 2 years, a vice president named Bolton had harassed her. Human Resources had told her, that's just how he is. When Charis left, she carried the contact information for an independent attorney. Bolton's access had already been revoked. Ethan called Dolores. How's Maya? Sleeping on my couch in her pink pajamas. I'm sorry, don't be sorry. Did you do something worth missing bedtime for? Ethan looked at the folders stacked across his desk. Each folder held a life he had failed to notice. Yes, Mom, then I'll keep her tonight. You come in the morning. A knock came at the door. Marcus entered with 2 coffees. You have a problem. Only one? Diana filed for an injunction to stop the board review. Ethan leaned back. On what grounds? She claims you concealed your identity to manufacture cause for retaliation. That makes no sense. It gets better. She now says she was preparing to report fraudulent activity connected to board-adjacent entities. She is calling herself a whistleblower. Yes, Marcus set down his cup, and she gave an interview. It airs tomorrow. What does she say? That you targeted a female CEO. That the flannel shirt was calculated theater. That you designed the humiliation to appeal to the public. Ethan rubbed his face. She is going to make this about gender. She is going to make it about anything except the audit. Marcus hesitated. There's more. Ethan looked at him. Hartwell Graham will dig into your life, your finances, Camille, your schedule. My daughter? They will not threaten her physically. That is not what I asked, Marcus answered carefully. They may use details about Maya to make you feel exposed. Ethan went very still. Then his jaw set. Call Harold. What are you going to do? Move the hearing forward. Judges don't move that quickly. They do when a billion-dollar company is on every news channel. Marcus watched him. What else? Pull every expense Diana approved. Every consultant, every shell vendor, every dollar. That is 4 years of records. Then hire more accountants. Marcus stood. At the door he looked back. I have told you for years that you were too soft for this business. I remember. I may have been wrong. After Marcus left, Ethan opened the dinosaur backpack. He removed the cracker. Its tail was more broken now. He held it for a moment. Then he called his mother. Mama. They're going to bring Maya into this. The silence on the other end was long. When Evelyn spoke, her voice was quiet. Then show them what a Cole does when someone comes for his child. At 5:30 Tuesday morning, Ethan sat at his kitchen table with black coffee and a yellow legal pad. By sunrise, he had a plan. When he dropped Maya at Dolores' house, he kissed the top of her head twice. She looked up immediately. Are the bad people coming? Ethan crouched. Why would you ask that? You kissed me twice. He looked into the eyes that reminded him so much of Camille. For once, he did not lie. Some adults said things they should not have said. Daddy has to tell them to stop. Are you going to win? Yes, good, she hugged him. Take the cracker. I will. The lobby was packed with reporters when Ethan arrived. A network correspondent stepped in front of him. Mr. Cole, how do you respond to Diana Callaway's allegation that you targeted her because she is a woman? Ethan stopped. Cameras lifted. He looked directly into the nearest lens. Last Friday I was fired from my own company by an executive who did not know my name. The lobby quieted. I did not argue because I wanted employees to see what happens in rooms where they have no power. He paused. I am sorry if Miss Callaway is crying on television. The reporters leaned closer. But I notice she is not crying for Terence Walker, who died after safety warnings were ignored. Someone lowered a microphone. She is not crying for Yolanda Briggs, whose wages were stolen while her son needed insulin. Ethan's voice hardened. She is not crying for Charis, who reported harassment for 2 years and was told to endure it. He looked into the camera. She is crying for herself. Silence. And that is precisely the culture I entered that boardroom to investigate. He drew a breath. I also understand that my 6-year-old daughter may be used as pressure in this legal strategy. His eyes changed. Let me be clear. Maya packed one goldfish cracker in a dinosaur backpack because she was afraid her father might be sad at work. He stepped closer to the cameras. She is 6 years old. Anyone who approaches her, photographs her, contacts her school, or attempts to involve her in this dispute will meet every attorney my personal fortune can retain. He let the warning settle. My daughter is not a strategy. Then he walked away. By 10 o'clock, Hartwell Graham issued a statement declaring that no one intended to involve Maya. By 11, Judge Eleanor Marsh agreed to hear the emergency injunction Wednesday afternoon. At noon, Marcus entered Ethan's office carrying a file 3 inches thick. We found it. What? Blackwell Strategic Advisors. Ethan opened the folder. 17 consulting contracts. Total payments, $11.4 million. What services did they provide? None we can identify. Who owns it? A Delaware trust. And the beneficiary? Marcus placed one page on top. Diana's younger brother. Ethan stared at the name. He lives in Boca Raton and owns a 47-foot boat called Topline. Ethan closed the folder. That is not whistleblowing. No, Marcus sat across from him. That is theft. Ethan thought for a moment. I don't want a trial. Marcus frowned. We have her, I know. You don't want the public win? I want the company repaired. I do not want another circus. So what do you want? A resignation, repayment, silence. And if she refuses? Ethan rested one hand on the file. Then every newspaper in America gets a photograph of Topline. Wednesday morning, Diana entered a conference room on the 40th floor with Hartwell Graham and a junior attorney. She looked smaller than she had on Friday. Her hair was pulled tightly back. There were shadows beneath her eyes. She sat across from Ethan without looking at him. Hartwell opened his folio. Mr. Cole, we are prepared to respond to the board's retaliatory. Ethan raised a hand. I can save us an hour. Marcus pushed the Blackwell file across the table. Open it. Hartwell read in silence. His face barely changed. Diana's did. Her eyes reached her brother's name, then the payment total. Her hand rose to her throat. Ethan spoke calmly. Here is my only offer. Hartwell set the file down. We're listening. Mrs. Callaway resigns today, citing personal reasons. She returns the $11.4 million, plus interest. Diana's face went pale. She signs a permanent non-disclosure regarding the company and its employees. We refer the financial matter for civil review, but we do not actively pursue criminal charges. Hartwell's eyes narrowed. And if she refuses? This file goes to the board, the Justice Department, and the Wall Street Journal before lunch. He looked at Diana. Your brother's boat will be on the front page by Monday. Hartwell requested 10 minutes. They returned in 8. We accept. Marcus placed a resignation letter and a pen on the table. Diana signed. At the door, she stopped. When did you know about Blackwell? Yesterday. She turned. So this did not begin because of the money. No. Her eyes moved to the backpack beside Ethan's chair. You really did all of this because of a goldfish cracker? Ethan shook his head. No, she waited. I did it because my daughter believed her father deserved kindness before she knew whether he was important. Diana looked at him for a long time. Then she whispered, I wish I had shaken your hand. I know. She left. Over the next 6 weeks, the company changed faster than anyone thought possible. Patricia Owens became permanent chief operating officer. Gregory Vance signed wage fraud. He accepted a plea agreement and surrendered the assets connected to the kickbacks. The Whitman contract was cancelled and rebid. Every unsafe strap in every facility was replaced within 72 hours. Chanel Walker received a new settlement with no gag order. College funds were established for Terrence's children. And the company created the Terrence Walker Foundation to fund independent safety inspections in industrial workplaces. The stock fell 14% in 3 days. Then it climbed. By the end of the second month, it stood 12% above its original value. One analyst explained it on television. The most undervalued asset in American business is a workforce that believes its employer will protect it. In late November, Harold called Ethan. We found a CEO candidate. Tell me. Imani Okafor, 51, 22 years in operations, started on a forklift in Newark at 19, worked nights to finish college, most recently ran supply operations for a Fortune 100 company, set the meeting. Imani arrived the following Tuesday. She shook Ethan's hand, sat across from him, and placed a thick binder on the desk. Before we begin, I want you to know I read all 419 employee accounts from your open door sessions. Ethan stared at her. All of them? All of them. Why? Because financial statements tell me what a company earns. Imani touched the binder. This tells me what it costs people. Ethan hired her 40 minutes later. On the last Friday of the year, Ethan packed his office. There was not much. A few books. A photograph of Maya at 3 covered in birthday cake. A picture of his parents on their wedding day. And one framed photograph of Camille. She had been a nurse. She had laughed with her whole body. 4 years earlier, an aortic aneurysm had taken her before either of them understood what was happening. Ethan wrapped the frame carefully and placed it in a cardboard box. Patricia appeared at the door. The staff is downstairs. How many? All of them. Patricia. They won't leave until they see you. He looked at the box, then at the dinosaur backpack on the desk. One more thing, Patricia said. What? Henry drove up from Raleigh. Ethan closed his eyes. All right, he rode the elevator down with Patricia and Marcus. When the doors opened, the marble lobby was packed from wall to wall. Office employees, warehouse workers, cafeteria staff, security guards, cleaning crews. Miss Althea stood near the front, holding a sheet cake decorated with blue icing. Thank you, McCole. Yolanda was there with Darius and Jerome. Leona stood beside Emma, who held a drawing of a man in flannel carrying a dinosaur backpack. Rachel from marketing had her nephew Tobias on her shoulders, and in the middle of them all stood Henry Walker, leaning on his cane. The lobby fell silent. Ethan stepped out of the elevator carrying the cardboard box. For several seconds he could not speak, then he set the box on the reception desk. You already know I don't like speeches. A soft, sad laugh moved through the crowd, so I'll keep this short. He looked around. 21 years ago, I built a business in a garage because I wanted to prove something. His eyes found his father's wedding photograph in the box. I wanted to prove it to myself, to my father, maybe to a world that had not always seen the people who raised me. For years, I thought I was building products, markets, and growth. He shook his head. I was wrong. The lobby remained still. This company is Henry Walker. Henry's eyes is Yolanda Briggs. Yolanda held Darius's hand. It is Terence Walker, whose name should have appeared in our safety reports 3 years ago and now appears on a foundation that will save other sons. Henry nodded once. It is Miss Althea's cake. A few people laughed through tears. It is Emma's drawing. Leona covered her mouth. Her daughter wrapped both arms around her leg. I was not here for you when I should have been. Ethan's voice broke slightly. I became busy, comfortable, distracted. He looked at the crowd. Because I looked away, people were hurt. Wages were stolen. Complaints were buried. A son died. His eyes returned to Henry. I will carry that. Henry gave him another slow nod. But there is a new CEO in this building now. Her name is Imani Okafor. She has read every story you trusted us with. Imani stood near the back. She will be a better leader than I was. Ethan drew a breath. And I ask one thing from every person here. He looked from face to face. If you ever enter a room where someone is being made invisible, say their name. No one moved. Say it out loud. His hand rested on the box containing his father's photograph. My father was a mechanic. The words became heavier. His name was Elias Cole. Evelyn's story echoed in his mind. He worked 43 years in the same garage. Men drove in with expensive cars, handed him their keys, and looked through him while he repaired what they could not. Ethan's eyes shone. He used to tell my mother, Evie, I just want to be seen. His voice almost failed. I see him today. He looked across the lobby, and I see all of you. Someone began crying, then someone else. Ethan stepped into the crowd. He did not shake hands in rank order. He began with the nearest person. He said every name he knew. He asked for every name he did not. And when each person answered, he looked them in the eye. It took almost 2 hours. Henry was last. When Ethan reached him, the old man opened both arms. They held each other without speaking. When Ethan finally stepped back, Henry pressed one palm against his chest. Go home to that baby, Ethan nodded. That's the plan. He picked up the dinosaur backpack and walked toward the revolving doors. Outside, sunlight covered the sidewalk. Maya stood beside Dolores in her favorite red dress and rain boots. The instant she saw Ethan, she ran. Daddy, he set down the box and caught her. She wrapped her arms around his neck. Is work over? Ethan looked back through the glass. Hundreds of people still filled the lobby. Henry stood at the center of them, smiling. Imani stood beside Patricia and Marcus. Leona held Emma's hand. Yolanda's arm rested around Jerome's shoulders. For the first time, the building did not look like marble, money, or power. It looked like people. Ethan turned back to Maya. Yeah, baby girl. Forever for the important part. She frowned thoughtfully. What was the important part? Ethan placed the green backpack on her small shoulders and adjusted the straps, making sure people were seen. Maya considered that with all the seriousness a 6-year-old could carry. Then she took his hand. Okay, can we go home now? Ethan smiled. Yes. He lifted the cardboard box with one arm and held his daughter's hand with the other. Together, they walked away from the tallest building on the block. Ethan did not look back again. The company had a new leader. The workers had their voices. Terence Walker's name would be remembered. Yolanda's son would receive his insulin. Patricia would never again be told she was not executive material. And Elias Cole, the mechanic people had looked through for 43 years, had finally been seen through the sun he raised. Ethan Cole had walked into the building as an invisible man in a flannel shirt. He left as something far more important than a chairman. He left as Maya's father, and this time he was going home.